is time to light the candle of charity, the candle of benevolence, the candle of love's adoration of love. For true love only desires to love even more. And in this hour, it's time to put a back support behind my back, an old guy here. But one thing is absolutely written in stone. Love is always so unconditional that love can only liberate. Love is the reason what we do and why we do it, and it's the greatest gift that we've ever had. So realize that it is absolutely a fact that love has never been a temporary feeling or an emotion. Emotions and feelings change, sometimes daily, but the law of unconditional love is everlasting, and that is the everlasting covenant of Jeremiah 31. God saying, I am your God, you are my people, I have forgiven you, and I will never remember it again. No conditions there at all. So spend your time on those that love you unconditionally. Don't waste it on those who only love you when the conditions are right for you. For true love will never make you a fool, and unconditional love will always win. To love without need or without expectation or restitution, that is the only way that we should be loving each other. And the ultimate lesson of all of us that we all have to learn is unconditional love, which includes not only others, but ourselves as well. For if we can't love ourselves, we can truly love no others. And so realize that unconditional love, it really exists. It is part of our deepest heart of heart, of our inner being. And when we were as children with our love as a verb moving forth, our love was always unconditional, but we let it wax cold. And then we end up in the land of the walking dead, where our love has just become a noun. And we have a form of godliness, but deny the power of love, who is Christ, supposed to be living in us. And if we have all the love in the world and there's conditions to all of it, we have no love really at all. We deceive ourselves. So it's time to love for the sake of being loved. That is to be human, but it's also time to love for the sake of loving. That is something angelic. So we can be angels in the flesh, or we can be demon wannabe. But one thing for sure, the Lord has removed Satan for 1,000 years, according to the prophetic word of love that everybody just seems to ignore here. So understand now that to be brave is to love someone truly unconditionally without expecting anyone in return, as Madonna said. Mark Anthony, he said, I found you without looking and love you without trying. We should not have to try to love each other. We don't have to like each other. Christ never liked the vipers and the snakes that he called the Pharisees, but he loved them. So it's time to realize that our all of our definitions have been obscured, and we've been looking through a glass darkly, because love has always been unconditional, but relationships are not, if we're not flowing in divine love. So the bottom line is that the beginning of love is to let those we love to be perfectly themselves, and not to twist them to fit our own image. Otherwise, we only love the reflections of ourselves that we find within them. And above all, we have to always understand that there is no good man, really, not even one. It's Christ alone living in us that is love, that makes us good. Otherwise, every man could boast. But love has never been perfect. It isn't a fairy tale or a storybook, and love doesn't always come easy. Love is overcoming obstacles, facing challenges, fighting to be together, and it's holding on and never letting go. And love is a short word. It's easy to spell. It's difficult to define, and it's impossible to live without love. Love is work, but most of all, love is realizing that every single hour of every minute of every second, it was all worth it, because if we're doing it with love, it makes everything worthwhile. And so the problem is that everyone is looking for unconditional love, but no one wants to give it. and everybody's carrying all kinds of bag full of conditions. And so it's the time that we turn around and live for the moment, because the moment is now, and now is the time of our salvation. Now is the time of the Lord's love, unconditional, to come forth. I am Daniel, the latter day one, foretold in Isaiah, Daniel 12:5, actually. The last sentence, Daniel 12:13. Too many verses in my head, and it's late. I've been making a lot of videos today. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking with that. But one thing for sure, it is time to turn on a new song, one of excitement, one of joy, one that can get us going. Because in this hour, it's time to remember the truest truths of love. So, godly love is patient and most kind. Love, therefore, endures with forbearance, and such adoration is also usually meek and very gracious. And most often, love sent from above doesn't even resent others or ever proudly exalt itself in any way. So, in this hour, it's time to let our love soar to new places where our love has never gone before. So, it's time to turn up the volume, and it's time to turn down our ignorance. And as we do that, it's time to realize more than ever that godly benevolence commonly seeks to bring others dishonor. And this is what we need to do, is to dance to the sound of the spirit of love. Because as we do, we'll stop and smell the roses, the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valley, and the holiness that dances in the wind of blessedness with us, two hearts mingling in the melody and the harmony of the spirit of love. And it's time to sing high notes of the exaltation of our living joy, who is our living happiness returning unto us. And so it's time to sing high his praises, to let his glory cover the earth as we go to the temple of our hearts and lift up his love. And if we will do that, he will inhabit our praises. And it's a beautiful sound when the echo of love echoes from within our bosom, because it is he living within us. So he says, dance the temple dance, dance the perfect dance of love, dance in the unity of the unconditionality of total forgiveness, that people can swim in the bottomless sea of his forgetfulness and his forgiveness. And so all the shame shall be removed from off everyone upon this latter day mountain as they do the temple dance. Because as they move and groove to the song of forgiving love and the kindness that goes in front of it, their hearts shall smile. And that is the best way to improve the looks of our attitude. A straight line, a plumb line from heaven drops. And it's time to grab the cymbals, and it's time to shake it for all that it's worth, to shake up this world as the fire of love consumes us and causes us to become ministers of his fire as we light other wicks of others ready to burn for the kingdom age of peace that will arise naturally in a supernatural way because of prophecy alone. For unless these days were cut short by his word alone, a roaring lion of Zion, no flesh could be saved. And so it's time that we come up. We come up. He says, come, lay your burdens down. And if we do, and if we will obey, then it's time that we can see that the peacefulness of that Song of Songs will light the charity and the benevolence within our heart, so that we can stand in the magnificence of the Lord's beneficence as we shine his light like mirrors towards our great beyond and much farther, if that were possible. So in this hour of love, making understandings of revelation, to restore all things, giving revelation of revelation to I, Daniel, the end time revelator. Nor does any godly benevolence ever commonly seek to bring others dishonor. That is just what love is made of. Love does not want to tear people down, wants to lift people up. And so it's time for his loving charity to be given freely unto others, because otherwise it's just nothing but self-seeking and vain in its unpleasant task of condemning each other. So it's time to stop judgment, because if we judge, then we would be judged. And realize that neither does God-given love, unconditional, ever become hateful, easily at least. For love is completely opposite, truly, to all anger. Therefore, it's really rare for love to ever really keep any records of other people's wrongs and their faults. Just as love can never celebrate wickedness, since love can only rejoice things that cause loving hearts to grow and to rejoice and be joyful over things of honest report. That's always been true to its very core. So love is very cautious to protect. And for such a reason, godly, unconditional love is constantly on guard for the benefit of others, so its power might protect them during the gravest times of death-inviting trouble. And neither could the unwiseness of love ever help itself from ever wanting to trust those who are unloving and not trustworthy. And the resolute trust that's breathed forth by our love of the ages, he who is the blessed, the beloved, and the adored, the desire of all nations, our God. He breathes his blessed wind of hope unto his children, and he continually does his best to send forth the wind of his blessedness to fill our sails as the tide of his blessedness comes around us. And so in this hour, it's time for enlightened souls to have their falsehoods to peel and off and fall away, so that we will end up hoping for the greatest types of hope of love to finally come true for all people of the earth. For the good of every needful soul is that they will end up meeting on life's winding road of many ups and downs as we travel pathways of tribulation. But praise God, all things work together for good for those called according to love. And so therefore, because such never say die kind of love is so very stubborn and strong-willed from the moment of its conception, such a realized form of Christ-like love, loving adoration, can't help but to find great success in any direction that the Holy Spirit might lead it to go. And so in this hour, we need to realize that success even comes forth from death. Even missionaries who's been slaughtered for their love still end up persevering in the long run. For by their deaths, the flames of love's hottest fires are fanned that might consume the hearts of all those feeling the intensity of love's most fervent heat ablaze by the hottest inferno of God's most fiery kind of blazing love. If only we will keep our eyes on the fires of heaven that make the fires of hell look pretty damn sick in compare. But it's time to realize also from the bottom of our heart of hearts that concerning all other spiritual giftings, failure of love is infinite for those who have no vision and no hope and no belief in our Prince of Peace being able to send that forth one heart at a time. And know in this hour that prophecy will stop. Where there are tongues, they will become silent. Where there is knowledge, that too could pass away. But when the winds of God's love moves in another direction, then it's time to follow that light of the Lord For he, our majesty of majesties, is now desiring everyone to follow after his most perfect way of unconditional love, because it is that kind of unending love, bottomless, the ocean of his adoration. That kind of love only can conquer anything standing in its way. And accordingly, absolutely no obstacle could ever resist and stop the eternal nature of his love, just as absolutely no power of the enemy could ever have a chance of withstanding such a loving, unstoppable force. For truly, there is only one force in this world, and it is the force of love, or it is the force of the lack of it. And realize that for the pillar by night in the days of Moses, leading the children of Zion from out of their bondage, just like that was Christ's love, all ablaze with his holiest firepower, all aflame with his love's mightiest might. And that flaming tornado in the spirit was a remarkable, charitable light of love in the days when he walked as the Good Shepherd, and now he arises as the Good Shepherd over all the flocks of man. And so it's time to celebrate his boundless glory, which suddenly began screaming out with great determination of his passion of love, which no created being could ever possibly overcome. And so it's time for everyone to welcome his eternal shining of his love that is more piercing than any razor blade could cut a spirit right out of a soul. Man, that's sharp.